Oh, hello.
Give you a warning.
I'm Margaret. Again, nice to see everyone.
Hello, welcome to the This Is Not Therapy Hour. I'm Brandon Tessers. I'll be on screen in just a moment. Margaret and I are both licensed therapists, but this is not therapy for very, very many reasons. This is just an open conversation. The two of us are here talking with one another and with all of you. Of course, we don't know you. We don't know who you are. We're doing our best to make our guesses about who you might be and what you're interested in and how we're impacting you, how you're interpreting us. For those of you who are willing and able to participate in the chat, we appreciate that because it gives us a lot more information on which to base those guesses. We know a lot more about who you are and what you're interested in and how we're impacting you. We do read out the we do read out the comments as they come in because we're streaming on 3 different platforms simultaneously, and you will only see the comments that come in on the platform that you are on. So if you're on Facebook and someone writes a comment on Twitch, you won't see it. So we try to read it out so that everybody's on the same page. This is not therapy. It's just a conversation. We're going to talk about whatever we talk about. If you are wanting to say something, please don't hesitate or hold back or worry about whether you're off topic or changing the subject. We like to be interrupted. We want to go wherever we go, just like any conversation. The things that we say impact, the things I say impact what you think and feel and do. The things you say impact what I think and feel and do, and the same with you all. We work with a private therapy practice called Effective Artistry. Our physical office is located in Northbrook, Illinois. We do individual, couples, family, and group therapy with people in the state of Illinois and Wisconsin. We also work with a few coaches who can work with people, executive functioning and emotional wellness coaches who can work with people all over the world via the internet. We were not here last week. Apologize for that. That was unplanned and unexpected. I usually am able to at least get the scrawl out there to explain that it's canceled and we'll be back, but I failed to do that last week. And the week before was unusual with our technical issues. So this is kind of our first time getting back to regular in a few weeks, and the first time doing a regular one with you joining us.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
I'm excited. I know I was thinking, because I know it's Labor Day or Labor Day weekend, whatever, and I typically have it off, but I don't know, I just was so excited to go to work.
Yeah.
And I remember telling my friends that, and I was like, I'm going to work. They're like, why? And I'm like, I'm just excited about it. And they're like, don't you need a day off? And I'm like, sure. I guess to me, yeah, sometimes it can be stressful. I can be tired, but also it energizes me. And the fact about having the full hour to do this is really exciting too.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy to be here too, and happy to have you. It's nice to both of us to be together and talking about all this stuff for the first time in this way. For anyone who doesn't know, especially if you're not from the U.S., today is a holiday called Labor Day. It's a federal holiday. Generally, people don't work on this day. It's in honor of the people who fought to get rights for workers, laborers, which is a very interesting history of things. Also, these days it is culturally typically thought of it. I don't know how many people really think of it as let's honor the work that advocates and unionizers, whatever, have done. It's more just kind of culturally a end of summer holiday.
Yeah, that's how I think about it.
It's the last weekend that community pools are open, and pretty traditional for people to do a barbecue, the last time you're having an outdoor thing kind of. But yeah, obviously as therapists and as people who don't work in a typical office setting or use typical schedules, there are lots of times that we work that other people don't typically work, and there's lots of times that other people typically work that we don't.
And I've just noticed, at least with me, that I do have a lighter day today. How many clients did I have? 3 or 4. I can't think right now. But at least for this holiday in particular, because I was like, let me message my clients and make sure.
Just as a reminder, I know you know this, but I want to help remind it, is that because we're streaming live on the internet, we make sure to not say any particular information about it.
Oh yeah, I know.
I know you know, but I just want to remind you.
It's nice for the reminder. I do know, but I'm sure as I get going, something would slip. No, but having clients like wanting to, like when I'm reaching out and making sure like, oh, it's a holiday and I didn't have any like cancellations or anything because it's off. And I think that's also a nice thing that they're not having to work or like come after work or after like picking up the kids. And it's like a nice day for them to just be in therapy on the day off.
Yeah.
Which is my thought.
Therapy has this kind of strange cultural space where it's thought of as like restful and like for your own benefit, kind of the same way that like getting a massage or, you know, getting a pedicure or whatever might be thought of. And also simultaneously thought of as like work and it's difficult to do. I often use metaphors relating to like being a personal trainer because I think that has a similar space where like working out in our culture is thought of as like for you and it's, you know, something you enjoy and you're doing on your own and it's also difficult work and you know, a lot.
With this though, put it on me for a second, like with trying to find a good time for like me to go to my therapist, having a real hard time because I don't know, like I normally like to go in person almost always, but it's like I don't want to do it before work because I don't know what I'm going to get into and how it's going to make me feel. I also don't want to do it after work because then I'm tired and I don't want to talk. So it's like at this point I would rather see it like my therapist on a weekend, but and let me know if you know anything, everyone, but I've never been able to find a therapist that I connected with that was open on the weekends. So now I'm stuck with just like, how do I do this? How do I schedule this? Like I don't know. It's weird being a client because I know all my clients see me at various times. And for me, it's like no time works for me.
Well, I mean, in your case, because you're talking about somebody that you currently see, right? Then I would suggest the same for you as for everybody else. Talk to your therapist about it. Let them know your concerns, why you prefer not to do it before a work day and why not after, and work through all that. It might be that there are options, it might not be, but if there's no options that outside of the things that you've ruled out, which you're basically saying like, I don't want to do it on a work day at all, then in that case, it's about talking about like, okay, well, what is it about the nature and the structure of how we're doing these sessions that makes it difficult and how can we modify things to be helpful while also working in your schedule?
I'm feeling so like, no, that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to do that. But it's so silly, like being like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, I don't know. I feel like when I'm the client, I don't think to say those things. I don't know versus like when I work as a therapist, that comes up very often when my clients are like, oh, this is really taxing or this is very emotionally whatever driven. And I'm like, oh, let's talk about it. But for me, it's almost like, I don't know. I think when I first started going back into therapy, it was so weird. Like I was like, I couldn't talk about myself. I don't know why, like because it was virtual to start. And so I felt like, I guess this is why I would rather not have it be during the workday because that shift from therapist to client, like if I was seeing my clients and then I would see my therapist, I still felt like I was the therapist. And I was like getting really like self-conscious about like what I was doing and how I was looking and all of that stuff. I don't know where I was.
Well, another thing that in line with what I was saying, right? You talk to the therapist about it. If that's your hesitation about doing it in the middle of the day, you talk about that. You say like, I find myself still being kind of like in therapist mode and see how it goes from there.
Yeah. And these all make sense. And I feel like as I continue doing it, like I'm becoming more comfortable. I don't know. I think how do I say it? I feel like I think so outside the box in my sessions with me being a therapist that then when I know people always say you're your harshest critic, like even though I'm a therapist, I don't know everything, how to help myself, but it's like when I'm seeing my therapist, I'm like, I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do. And I just feel so stuck. But then I could see a client the next hour and like come up with like 30 things. It's just so strange.
Yeah. Well, being a therapist, even no matter how like successful you are, how good you are at helping clients, doesn't enable you to do those things for yourself. Just like being a massage therapist doesn't mean you can like massage out your own back, whatever, right? The nature of therapy is this, it's not the only thing like this, but it is in this strange spot in our culture where everybody is talking, not everybody, but more and more as time goes on, people are talking about therapy and how great it is and how important it is and how people should do it, without it being accompanied with like any kind of large discussion about what therapy is or why it's so great or what to expect with it. This is silly, but like to me, it's like how I think about antioxidants. Like, I don't know what they are. Not exactly sure what they do or what the mechanism is, but I know they're good. You're supposed to have them, and somehow it's correlated with like lower chance of having cancer if you eat more antioxidants. It's that kind of thing. And so people come and they know it's this realm, like it's supposed to help me. There's things that I'm dealing with like emotionally or cognitively, or sometimes a lot of the time even like physically and environmentally, there's stuff I'm dealing with, but they don't know really much about it.
Yeah.
And so you come in with these expectations of what you're supposed to do that are wildly off because of how therapy is generally portrayed and talked about.
I'm challenging your antioxidant metaphor just because, no, I feel the same way. I still don't know what that is, but I just like, I'll eat blueberries. It has antioxidants. It's great.
Yeah.
But at least, this is my thought, at least with that, like how do I say this? There are, like, I don't know them, but I'm sure they're like antioxidants are good for X, Y, Z. Like it's very straightforward versus therapy. I feel like everyone has such a different view of how it's helpful. I could ask like 10 other therapists why they think therapy is useful, and they'd give me 10 different things. So I feel like it's even more confusing because it's still more vague.
Well, that's part of the issue, is that it's culturally so unclear and ambiguous, and we don't talk about it, that even therapists and the industry of therapy itself doesn't really have much consensus on it. You would think that in like, we both have master's degrees. You have to have a master's degree at least to become a therapist. You would think that in that training, we would talk a lot about like, what is therapy? What is the mechanism of it? And how is it helpful? And it is discussed to some extent, but it's pretty minor to the extent that nobody, like when we hire people, I ask often in interviews, like, in your mind, what is it that makes therapy? What is it about therapy that makes it helpful? And people are like, well, I haven't thought of it. That's an interesting question.
I think grad school made me more confused, honestly, on what therapy was. Just, I don't know, even like when I think back to like all my classes and everything, like everyone had such different approaches, everyone had different things, and that's good. But I think how they framed it was my way is the right way. So then I'm going to like 5 classes and each teacher's like, this is the right way to do it. So I'm like, where do I go? Where is this mold? And then like when I came here to effective artistry, I can't remember it's exactly, but I'm sure that when you asked me that question in their interview, I just was like helping people, like froze, like didn't know what to say.
Yeah. It's one of those things that like every step of the way makes sense. Like everything that people are doing was a great way to solve a problem that existed. Someone came up with a solution and it's a good one. But then like with all systems, like as things are built up, there's just little interactions and loops and whatever that end up with some stuff happening that's like counter to what anybody intended it to be.
Right.
And schooling is definitely one of those things where like there is obviously good reason if we're trying to say like, hey, there's a thing where if you talk to somebody, work with somebody, they can help you with like your emotions and your thoughts, but you got to talk through those things. Like that's vulnerable. And so if you're looking to do that, it makes sense that we want to have some guidance, some marker of credibility of like, okay, but like who are people that I am more likely to be able to trust here? And so we have licensure process. And if we have a licensure process or any kind of credentialing process, then we have to come up with like, well, what is it that makes it so that some people, that you get this, that marks you as being something like that. And in this case, among other things, a college degree is one of those things, which again makes sense. And then you go to college and you study, and the point of a university education is that it is academic, it's didactic. You're learning in the classroom, you're learning by talking about things rather than by doing those things. Many programs, including therapy, then have like internships or journeyman, kind of apprenticeship stuff baked in at some point, so you start to get hands-on practice. But if we need to come up with a 2 to 3 year degree where we teach people how to be therapists, that means we have to, of all the things that are involved in being a therapist, we have to select and teach the ones that you can teach, that you can write a book about and talk, do lessons on and whatever, not the experiential side. We talk a lot about like the theoretical the
Mhm.
academic, the content knowledge side. And that unfortunately gives everyone, therapists included, the wrong impression about how important that stuff is. That everyone then over focuses on that it's the content that you know,
Mhm.
that's what makes it so that someone is helpful or as
Right.
a therapist.
And I was gonna say
Okay.
tail end on that, like I think this is what you said, let me know, but like yeah, like people assume therapy is like I'm gonna go and talk about my issues and it's gonna be helpful to like get it out there. But I think even when I think people hear the word like, oh, a therapist can help with depression, a therapist can help with anxiety, they automatically mean I know how to solve it. Like I am the expert and I know how
Yeah.
to do it. And that's where like even the word help, because I mean, even for me, I think I thought that before working here of like, that means that I should know what I'm doing. And like if someone comes to me with anxiety, depression, ADHD, whatever, that I'm gonna know what to do because that's what helping is. When that's not at all what that is.
Yeah.
It's all confusing.
The premise generally in our culture is that therapists are helpful because of what they know,
Mhm.
because they know the things that allow them to be helpful.
Mhm.
Because that's how we generally think about doctors,
Right.
which is, again, generally true. Like when it comes to medicine, the doctor has information, again, theoretically, obviously, same with therapists, whatever. Like in any profession, license or not, there's going to be people who, at least some people who are like actively, consciously trying to be harmful, but also lots of people who are trying to be helpful and
Right.
unintentionally harmful. It's just about it's more likely and that you have recourse if something were to happen. You know, if they do something, you have some recourse. There's a governing body that you can go to about that
Mhm.
therapist and whatever. But yeah, that again, this is another one of those things that makes a lot of sense where like in an effort to fight the stigma associated with people struggling cognitively, emotionally, and looking for help with those things, because that was still is, but used to be a lot more stigmatized even
Yeah.
in it are, and it still is a good amount. Part of that was to say like, look, this is just like an illness, right?
Mhm.
Like you wouldn't judge somebody for having the flu, so why are you judging somebody for being depressed?
Right.
And that's great, and it's useful, and it helped shift the conversation and the way that people think about things. It also had the unintended effect of causing everybody, including therapists, to
Mhm.
think of therapy as medicine, like
Right.
the field of medicine. And so that's why you think about like, oh, if there's something going on with my ear, I go to the ear, nose, and throat doctor, and they're the
Mhm.
one with the knowledge and the access to the right tools, and they're
Right.
able to like prescribe the right treatments and whatever. So people think of therapy the same way, which is part of why people think like therapists should not be struggling with anything. Because they're thinking if the reason a therapist helps me is because of what they know, and they all know all that stuff, then they
Right.
should be fine. They have the knowledge.
I want to ask you, Brandon, because I'm curious. I think I've asked this before, but what is your short definition of what is therapy then?
Uh, Therapy is an interpersonal process in which it is a contractual relationship, meaning that we have established from the beginning what the intent of this relationship is. So
Mhm.
specifically in therapy, it's an interpersonal relationship in which the stated intent is for both people to focus on being as helpful as possible to one of those people.
Mhm.
And that there are other things then in the relationship, most notably payment, that is the value that the other person derives from it.
Mhm.
So it's the nature of that relationship
Mhm.
that allows it to be helpful.
Yeah.
The content that is discussed, the things that are said, very much modify how helpful it is or is not.
Right.
But it is the structure of the relationship
Mhm.
that is required for it to be helpful.
I love that. I wish that was what I heard, and I think it would have made a lot more sense when I was in school to like be more, I guess, understanding and at ease with what I'm doing. Because yes, and I always said too, like I always focus on the relationship, like very person centered. Relationship's the best, but it was just like a factor of it. Like I thought at the end of the day, though, the relationship's important, but I need to know how to help with all of these things, and I need to have the knowledge to help with all of these things. Whereas the relationship is the biggest part of it, and I think a lot of people kind of gloss over that.
Yeah, it's funny because we're taught this in school, but no one ever remembers it. In my experience, when I talk to other therapists, people don't tend to remember this. It's called common factors theory, where there's work that's been done to identify of all the elements of a therapy process,
Mhm.
Like if we're going in with the premise that it is possible for it to be helpful, if it's helpful, what is it about it that makes it helpful?
Yeah.
And I could be getting some of these numbers a little bit off, but I'm pretty confident in having them mostly on, that they give you like a pie chart and say percentage wise.
I know what you're talking
And
about
it's
now.
like 40% is the relationship. Or no, 40% is 30% is the relationship. 40% is what's called client factors, which just means like,
The hope, right?
no, that's 15%, I believe. We
Really?
should look this up.
I know.
In my best I can recall, it's
Can I look it
40%
up?
is client factors, 30% is relationship, 15% is hope, and 15% is technique.
Can I look it up?
Yeah.
I'm very curious because I have thoughts about that. I do remember that.
I vaguely remember. I mean, the guy who did this work is Michael
Chart.
something. Michael White. Michael Black. Is it a color name?
We'll find out. That is not what this is supposed to be.
You can just search common factors theory.
Oh, that would be.
That's like the name of it. I'll have my phone on me.
Okay.
But yeah, we're taught that. And then we move on from it quickly because what do you teach somebody? Like, how do you sit down and have a lesson plan and have people write papers or do presentations or give a test about all that? Yeah.
Yes, I do. So you're gonna have to help me with this. They made it a lot more like easier to understand when I was in school, but it says therapist effects. Is that the relationship? No, that's a line. Okay, sorry. Therapist effects 36 to 57%.
Okay.
The alliance effects, which I'm assuming is the relationship, is 36 to 50%.
Interesting.
But it said
This is a different
I know it's not the one I'm.
breakdown. No, I mean, it's interesting. No, I don't look it up.
Oh, was it a Lambert's pie?
Maybe.
Okay, because it says in Wolverhampton. I don't know.
So this is the one that we were taught. Yes, I had it. It's 40% is client factors, client variables,
I
and
just
extra
found it.
therapeutic events. 30% is the relationship. 15% is hope or expectancy, placebo effects. 15% is technique.
What is the client factor again?
Client factor
40%?
means stuff that has nothing to do with the therapy.
Oh,
In other words, like people all the time are sad for whatever reasons, even to the extent that might categorize them as being depressed, and then things happen and things change, their life changes or who knows what, and they get happier
oh, okay.
regardless of whether they go to therapy or not. So yes, 40% is like stuff just happens and it gets better. And in that case, what we're looking at is like, well, the therapy theoretically is helpful to some extent on top of that. Also, though, even if what the therapy is helpful for is just kind of helping a person to keep going and moving through things until things are getting better.
So this is where it gets even more confusing in my mind because I do remember them, that Roosevelt, where I went to school, talking about that. But then if they're showing us that is the highest percentage is client factors and then the relationship, then why do they not put more of an emphasis on that in the whole program?
Well, because like I'm saying, there's not a way to teach. Like, how do you do a class on like,
Brandon,
let's
you
talk
could do
about
it.
all the things that happen in a client's life that might change things. And even if we could, there's not much use in you learning a ton about like how people's lives just get better sometimes for some reason.
Yeah, that's true.
So we focus on that 15%, which is technique, because that's the part where we can like write books and read and study and share. And of course we do, programs make an effort to do as much as possible of, having people practice therapeutic skills, having people practice talking to each other in certain ways. And we do teach to some extent, like active listening and minimal encouragers and, like all this stuff about how to interact and what it is to be authentic and et cetera. It's just that environment, even when we're talking about those things, we're talking about them in abstract ways. That's why therapists also have to do an internship where they have someone at, like I am a site supervisor, where you go and you work with clients under the supervision of an expert who then trains you in that way as well.
I feel like I'm in a very argumentative mood right now. No, but maybe that's a bad way to say it, but I don't know, argumentative mood about all of these things, like, yes, that makes sense that they can't teach about those specifics, but then I feel like when they are honing in on the technique so much, like even in my basic counseling class and my advanced counseling, when you, like one student pretends to be the therapist, the other the client, and like you're doing that role play, it's so robotic. Like it was very much like, I can't remember it because after working here, in a good way, I can't remember how robotic it felt, but like the reframe and then the validate and then the this, and like it was ingrained, like that's how you have to do it.
Part of that is the nature of any kind of learning where like someone who's new at it is not as practiced and smooth, and they're being more thoughtful to be like, let me do it the way I was told to do it.
Right.
Part of it is specifically the environment of a university or a class of some kind where you have grades and things, and so even if a professor's making an effort to be like, there's no right or wrong, you're not being graded on this or whatever, there's still that underlying through line of like, I got to do it right. And in the academic environment, that means do it the way that the professor or the teacher told me to do it.
But see, oh God, it's coming back to me now. Even when like we would have worksheets of like, this is the client and they're going through this, like how would you respond? I don't know, I felt like if I didn't relate enough, that you need to relate more. It still felt very mechanical while doing the homework anyways.
Yeah, part of it too is that in therapy, like what we're talking about, anyone would agree that a fundamental part of a therapy process or a therapeutic relationship is that one person is identified as the therapist, one is identified as the client, or some people call them patients, but we say client, and that both parties have explicitly discussed that the focus is on helping the client.
Yeah.
With in a situation in which you're practicing your skills, that is not the case. The focus there is on practicing your skills, not being as helpful as possible to the other person.
That makes sense.
So you can't replicate it exactly unless it's real, which is why we do internships. Of course, that's another one of those things that it makes sense, and I'm glad it exists and solves a problem, and then leads to all kinds of things that are problematic and exploitative and whatever. So there's also just our culture broadly. We're big on the idea that people wouldn't always phrase it this way. And in fact, phrasing it this way, a lot of people will be like, I do not agree with that. That's terrible. But if I phrase it in a different way, they would likely agree. That people get what they deserve in our culture. That what you achieve and what you experience is pretty much universally under your control, or at least to a very large extent under your control. That if you fail a class, you could have done X, Y, or Z in order to pass it instead. And if you pass a class, it's because you did X, Y, or Z thing. So we have this big focus on the idea that like, if things are happening to you, more broadly, what I'll say a lot is like, we have a myth in our culture that if you want to do something, you do it. And if you don't do something, therefore, that means you didn't want it.
Yeah.
And that's obviously not the case, because everybody has things where like, I want it, or I wanted to do it and I didn't. And then we just say weird things like, well, I guess I didn't want it enough. Like, what does that mean?
Right.
Just still means I didn't do it. And somehow I think that's correlated to the amount that I wanted or not. But the only way to know if you wanted it enough is if you did it. So this underlying thing that if you're sad, if you're experiencing anything unpleasant, it's because something is wrong. You're missing something, you're doing something you shouldn't do, you're not doing something that you should do, there's something that you don't know that would be helpful to know, etc. But all kind of framed through that lens of like, it's about you and something you could do or could know.
Right.
It's a nice story, and it's really helpful in a lot of ways. And even when it is problematic, it still helps us to feel better. To be like, there's something I can do about this, instead of like, nope, there's not really much I can do about this thing.
Right.
But yes, it leads to that thing that everybody assumes that if I just knew more stuff and did different stuff, I'd be happy.
I feel like you're subtweeting me just with just me being like so in tune with like my body, my awareness, being like something's wrong, like what's going on. Oh
man, I do the same thing.
I'm getting better though, a lot better. But what I wanted to touch on too was like being like, oh, I just want to be happy. And like, I thought that happiness meant like, I'm just like, I don't know, like I tried to explain it now. I realize how ridiculous my thought of it was because I can't even put it into words anymore. But like, just so like ecstatic about life, just so like, I want to say energetic, but I'm always kind of energetic. But just like so excited, so upbeat, so like yes, 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 everything's so great. And then the moment I don't feel like that, I'm like, oh my god, I'm depressed. Like I don't know what's going on. Like I feel comfortable now saying it now, but like I think I had this realization yesterday, Brandon. Like for this past month, sometimes I'd be like, oh my god, like if I wasn't feeling anxious, I was like, oh, I'm depressed. Like something's going wrong. And like yesterday, I was at home and I was like painting, like hanging out with my cats, and like the thought came to my mind of like, oh my god, like, are you depressed? And I'm like, and I sit there and I'm like, why am I depressed? Because for the first time, in a long time, I felt really calm and at ease. And I was just doing my thing. And I remember like I called my mom and I told her like, I was like, I thought I was depressed, whatever. She's like, Margaret, she's like, how do I say this? Like, there's been so many ups and downs with my life. And right now, like things are good. Like things with my partner are good. Things with my job are good. Things with my friends are good. And like, I'm not used to that, like, very level-headed stability of it. So I realized like when I don't have those extreme highs or those extreme highs, I make myself think I'm depressed when in reality I'm just like good and calm. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. This is where we get into stuff that to me is very meaningful, but I am always concerned and comes across as though I'm being like persnickety about language or like nitpicking things that people then think I'm like, okay, I used the wrong word, whatever. But there's some, yes, I would not say that you make yourself think that you're depressed. I would say that as with everything, we've taken in signs, language that we connect to meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like depressed means whatever it means to you, and it means whatever it means to me. And when we speak the same language as someone else, theoretically, there's a lot of overlap in the meaning that we assign to things, but it's not the exact same. And that's not a conscious process, this acquisition thing. We don't go through life starting as like toddlers being like, all right, what does mother mean to me? Like you acquire and utilize language via different processes.
Yeah.
And then we get older, and again, in part because our culture is obsessed with this idea that if you just knew enough stuff and if you were right, you'd be happy. And if you're not happy, it's because there's stuff you're doing wrong or that you're wrong about. We get obsessed with this idea of being right and being wrong. So it's not that you make it happen. It is that you have acquired that right. Symbol of depressed connects to a lot of things. And some of what it connects to, you're talking about, you could also connect, anyone could, right? If we're talking about like, I'm not thinking about a lot of stuff and I'm not like feeling very energized or that there's anything urgent that I need to do with it. Anybody would agree that like, well, that could, if someone was depressed, that could be true. It's also, if someone is relaxed or calm, that could also be true. It can go either, and it can go to a lot more places too. So you're seeing some things that you associate with being depressed. Then you connect it to depressed, and then when that happens, that connects to all the other things you associate with depressed.
Right.
So even though you weren't sad before, now that you're thinking depressed, now it's, I'm sad.
Yep.
Among other things too. So this is why it's so important that we are very precise. Well, okay, I'll say again, the relationship and something we call the necessary and sufficient factors of therapeutic change are the only things that are necessary. There's Carl Rogers' list of like, if these things are true, then there will be benefit in therapy. No matter what else is true, if these things are true, there will be some benefit. And if any of these things is not true, no matter what else happens, there will be no benefit. As long as all that's true, therapy can be helpful.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about, like we said, there's lots of things you can do theoretically that make it more or less helpful. And for me, a lot of that is about the way that we utilize language, both internally and interpersonally, and the meaning that we connect to various different things.
I'm smiling over here just because this is so silly. I want to apologize for how I've been so annoyed with you recently with the language. And when I'm like just really freaked out, I'm just talking, you're like, well, what does that mean? What do you mean panic? And I'm like, stop asking me that. But No, it does. Took me 4 years, it's fine, to realize that like the language makes so much sense, because I know, like, thinking back to yesterday, like if I had let that depressed thought play out, yeah, I would have been sad. Yeah, I would have been hopeless. Yeah, that all of that would have happened. But when I realized, like, no, I'm just calm and relaxed. I had like probably one of the nicest Sundays I've had in like such a long time.
That's great.
And I remember like telling my fiance about it, and he's like, what was different? I'm like, how I thought about it. Like nothing was different, that made me. It's just crazy. The mind is so powerful, and
Agreed.
yeah.
I mean, I'll say, I appreciate that. Also, there's no need for you to apologize. Our job is to be helpful to people. And if the way that I or anybody in my position or as a therapist is communicating something is like whatever response we're eliciting, whether it's being annoyed or anything else, that's what we elicited. So it's on us then to like shift and try something different. Or sometimes that's not problematic and it's okay. We're accomplishing what we're trying to accomplish, regardless of whether there's annoyance or whatever. So nothing to apologize for. And yes, that's part of what we were talking about earlier. Everyone, there's this intuitive understanding of like, wow, the mind, the way you think about things. And we talk about this all the time. Like, you just got to shift the way you're thinking about things. Maybe if I just wanted it more, or what, like, I just need to be more motivated. We talk about all these things all the time in our culture that are some version of, if you think of it differently, things will be significantly different. You'll feel differently, you'll behave differently. And that's true. Unfortunately, we don't ever talk, or at least we don't often talk about the mechanism. What does that mean?
Right.
Think about it differently.
Yeah.
How do I do that? Fine. Think differently, but how?
Right.
And language, internal use of language, to me is the mechanism for that. If we change what something means to a person, what comes up when they, so like as a metaphor, right? If someone were to walk into this room holding a handgun, like you and I would both be immediately
so dark. Yeah.
Like terrified, nervous. We would not be thinking about the stream or this conversation. We'd be focused on that. Now imagine that I'm a person who has never seen or heard of or in any other way come into contact with the information of what a handgun is and what it can do. Then if somebody walks in holding one, I don't respond in that way. I don't get nervous and anxious and whatever. Now in that case, we're talking about something where our reaction to it is reasonable.
Right.
It's useful that we treat it as being as dangerous as we treat it as, but it is still something that we had to learn.
Right.
We had to get the idea some way, somehow, that something that looks like that connects to all these other things, that it can hurt somebody or kill somebody and whatever. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about language. It's not just words and the way that we use words. It's a sign. It's you see or hear, or there's something, and then how do you connect that to what does that thing mean? What can it do? What should I do in response to it? And so on. And changing the way that people, if we wanted to. So now let's take a different scenario where someone's acting in a way that we all would agree is unreasonable, that they come into an office and they see this plant and they respond to it in the way that we just discussed, that we respond to a gun, like on edge, like, oh my gosh, that's something that could kill me. I can't focus about anything else because that thing's right there. And if we wanted to change that, then what we have to do, and we can talk, this is where like technique and stuff comes in, we can talk about different methods to try and accomplish it. But what we have to change is what that means to the person.
Correct, right.
And of course, at first, like we can just get rid of the plant, get it out of here, and that'll help. But if we're trying to change the underlying, like anytime I see a plant, it's a big problem. We have to change what it means. And doing that by talking and utilizing language is one way. Doing that experientially is another way. Modeling, right? If I'm not afraid of it and you're not afraid of it, every time somebody sees that, they become less afraid of it. We can do exposure therapy stuff where we just have them focus in on like, look, what is it that you're worried will happen? Let's go in there. Is it happening? Etc. But yeah, we have to change what it means. So, in that pursuit, happiness. This is something that comes up a lot. You mentioned it. We're talking about how our culture talks about it. This is not meant to be like people use this word incorrectly. This is meant to be, if we change what it means to a person, it's helpful. Yeah. Happiness is not an emotion. Everybody thinks of it as an emotion. We talk about it that way sometimes. Other times we talk about it as a condition, a state of being. Right. Think about like health. We can all say that a person is or is not healthy, at least right? We might be wrong or right, or whatever. But like in theory, it is true that a person is healthy or is not healthy. But that's not a phenomenological experience. A thing I'm feeling, I don't feel health right now. Now, over time, we start to use that word differently. And we do say, like, I feel healthy as a way of saying, I don't feel sick.
Right.
Just like we use, I feel happy as a way of saying, I don't feel sad or angry or scared or, whatever these unpleasant emotional experiences are.
Right.
But that's what the emotional experience of happiness, when we're talking about that, all we mean is the absence of the unpleasant emotional experiences.
Real quick, I have to ask then how, if happiness is not an emotion, which is funny because like, I do agree with that, but I'm still stuck on like, then how come anger and sadness is an emotion, but happiness isn't?
Well, because emotions are things, right? Like some of this has to do with what we call centering, meaning if we center something, we're measuring based on the extent to which that thing is present or absent, right? I've used this metaphor before, and sometimes it works, and sometimes people have questions about it. So we'll see. Is that like darkness is not a thing which exists or is present. Light is a thing which is present or absent. In the absence of light, we label what we call that darkness. But what we're talking about in reality is there's no light there.
Okay. Yeah.
So emotion is the same thing, right? That there is no emotional state. A person that is not alive is not experiencing an emotion, but and then there is an emotional state. You experience some things, and what exactly does that mean? People have their different ways of talking about it. What I would say is that we generally, when we're talking about emotions, we're talking about things where we've connected some physical sensations and some cognitive experiences together.
Okay.
Meaning, like, if I'm just queasy, I'm talking about a physical sensation, and I have no thoughts that I connect to that that I think of as like being part of the same thing.
But can you do that with happiness?
Well, you then ask people, as I often do, like, okay, so what does it feel like? When you are happy, what is it that you are noticing? And mostly it's people talking. Mostly people are like, I guess I can't.
Yeah.
If you say, think about a time in your life in which you were very happy, what did that feel like? And that's a difficult or impossible question to answer.
Yeah, that's fair.
So happiness is, again, when I say it's not an emotion, I don't mean if you use it as an emotion, you're wrong. It gets used that way a lot. I think it is more helpful to people to think of it as a condition, a state. And happiness is the state of liking the things that are happening. If you like what is going on.
I'm pretty happy then.
Yeah. I mean, look, a very common experience. I'm not speaking to you specifically, a hypothetical. You are in a relationship with a person that you like or even love, and it's great and you're happy in it and whatever. And then something happens, and now the two of you are in a fight, and you're very, very angry at that person. In that moment, would you also say, I am not happy in the relationship? Or is it possibly happy in the relationship and angry at the person?
Are you asking me, Steve? I mean, it's funny because I probably would say the first one, but now after this conversation, I would say the second one.
People often try to communicate things like this. Like when somebody says, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. That most often, again, I can't say for sure every time, but that very frequently I think is intended to convey like, I don't like what you did and I don't like what happened, but I am not adjusting the way I think of you as a person in any kind of like detrimental way permanently or whatever. That doesn't tend to get interpreted out of that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you ask people like, what does it mean when someone says I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed? Everyone will say like, oh, that hurts even more. Or, that's even worse. But what does it mean? Nobody can really say.
Yeah. I mean, actually though, isn't that a good thing then? I'd rather have, after this, I guess I'd rather have them be disappointed than upset.
Well, and that's the thing. A lot of these things persist. Like all these things in our culture that are very common, even though we all can talk about how it like sucks to be on the receiving end of it, but we still do it anyway and whatever. A lot of these things are things that what the speaker is saying, what they're trying to do is a nice thing, but it gets interpreted by the receiver in a way that causes problems. Just do your best is another version of that, where the speaker is trying to say like, relax, whatever you got is fine, don't stress about it. But what is received often is like, If you do anything less than your best, whatever you do, I will interpret as your best and will think of you as a person that this is the best you could do. So it raises the stakes.
Right.
I'm not mad, I'm disappointed often is meant to be like, I don't like what happened, or I don't like what you did, or both, and I love you.
Mm-hmm.
And the extent to which I love you has not changed because of this.
Yeah.
But it is often received as like, oh man, like if they were mad, I could maybe be angry at them too, but really they're just sad. I've made them sad, and that hurts more.
Yeah.
So that's in the root of the word happiness too, like etymologically, it's about same root as like what happens. Happenstance. We're talking about like the things which are occurring, not the physical feelings or thoughts you have about it. Just like Shakespeare uses the word happy as what we would pretty much think of as like fortunate or lucky or blessed. We happy few means like we who are in like desirable circumstances. So it's useful to think of it that way.
Okay. Question. So when you said like happiness means like you like the things that are happening, right?
Think of it as fortunate or blessed or lucky.
But like, okay, let me use my example of my painting. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, how do I know if I just like something or if I'm just using it to like pass the time and it's okay? Like, I feel like
those are not mutually exclusive things. You can like something and be using it to pass the time and it's okay. What you're talking about instead is about like whether something is productive.
Am I?
Well, like if you like it, then what's wrong with it?
No, I mean, how do you know? This is, I think I'm going too deep in my own head right now.
Yeah.
I think I'm having like a moment.
Well, this is the thing. This is why therapy has to be interpersonal. This is why I am not concerned about like AI and whatever, because it's no different than books and podcasts and whatever that have been offering that kind of help. But the nature of this is about communicating with an actual person who hears and responds to you, not in perfect ways, but in the like specifically human imperfect ways. There are things that happen in interpersonal communication that don't happen in the way that you think. And so yeah, some of that is like what you're experiencing. It's like, whoa, I'm thinking about things that I've never considered before.
Yeah. I guess my thought was, how do I know if I really like the things I'm doing?
Well, really is doing a lot of lifting in that statement. What do you mean really like? I mean, you know if you like or don't like something. That doesn't need to be broken down.
I guess, okay, so painting was a bad example. Like I love reading, but sometimes I just
don't.
Yeah.
I love sleeping, but sometimes I don't.
But it's like extended periods of time with reading where I'm
but
like,
there are reasons.
Yeah. I don't know, like sometimes I'll be like, happens a lot actually. I'll be driving home from work and I'll be like so excited to go home and like make dinner. I'm gonna read my book. Like I really like the book I'm reading. I'm 30 pages away from it, so I really want to find out the ending. And like I'm gonna make the house all nice, and then I get home and I just don't want to do it.
Great example of what we were talking about earlier, where our culture teaches that everything that a person experiences at the root of it is really about them and what they think and who they are and whatever. So you're looking for like, what is the internal thing and missing what other things might be true. If someone were to say to you, like, I know that I love going for walks around my neighborhood, but sometimes I'll go like extended periods where I just don't want to do it. And you're like, oh, like when? You're like, like pretty much like almost every year from like late November to like March, I just don't want to go for walks, but I love going for walks.
I see what you're doing there.
What?
And it's because it's winter time and you don't want to be outside.
Sure. There are variables, there are factors at play, but if you don't think those things matter, then you don't pay attention to them. So in reality, that's not likely to happen. What a person would say is like, I'll go months at a time and I don't want to walk, and they won't have clocked when it is or that it's the same time, because obviously if they did, they would have been paying attention to that as being relevant.
Sure, but what if like in the last few years, like I'll read continuously throughout this period of time in the summer and early fall, so why?
It's a very, very common thing in our culture for people to like be voracious readers in middle school or like even the start of high school or all through high school, and then after that they don't read fiction anymore. And there are many variables that play into that, and I've talked about some of the other ones more commonly because, well, whatever. But one of the things is many of those people, myself included, I mean, I also read fiction as an adult,
Mhm.
as not as voraciously as. One of those things is like a lot of those people, middle school, you go to school and then you go home, and then you're at home, and you don't have like other people around you to be hanging out and talking with all the time, and you don't, especially depending on the age of the person,
Mhm.
like you didn't have like phones to be on with people all the time. So in that sense, then reading is like a version of interpersonal interaction
Yeah.
that I would prefer live interaction with the person that I like over reading, but you just had a lot of time and a lot of ability. Once you're hanging out with people that you like a lot more, there's less of both less opportunity, time and energy, whatever, but also less of a function in like, I want to pseudo spend my time with people.
No, I just as soon as we were talking about it, because I remember we've talked before about my books and whatever, I totally clocked it. It makes so much sense. My little light bulb moment is life's going pretty freaking good. And not that means that like that means I can't read, but it's like I would rather do other things. I did use it a lot to like, because I've been more into like the fantasy realm and like a whole different world and like just escaping to that. But there are other things I'd rather spend my time with. And I don't know, as soon as I said that I haven't been reading a lot, it's like, yeah, I've been talking a lot more with people and like calling my friends and my family and spending time with them, which is also something that I haven't done a lot of in the last few months, going through a lot of ups and downs. So I think now it's like I want to be out and about and talking and communicating. Man.
Yeah, there's a lot of like, I myself experience this again. Our culture talks about everything through this like deficit lens. What is it that's going wrong? What is it that's missing? And so I myself will be like, man, I miss when I used to like get really excited about D&D and like spend so much of my time like creating adventures and making up stories in my head. Why don't I do that? And then we think about that as like, what's wrong with me? Especially if you know anything about depression and anhedonia.
Right.
Like, I'm not interested in the things I used to be interested in. And we ignore that, like, well, I also have 3 children now that I didn't used to have back
Right.
then. And like, there's a lot of time and energy and whatever going to that that would have gone to the other thing in the past. Because we don't take cost and value both into account, just whether something's good or bad. And that puts us in this place where we can say, if there's a good thing and I'm not doing it, that's bad. And if there's a bad thing that I am doing, that's bad. And like, we're just evaluating things in these philosophers have talked about forever, not literally forever, but anybody from all various cultures, when people spend a lot of time thinking about thinking and what it is to be a person, whatever, one of the conclusions that people come to all across the board is like, oh, we don't know anything about anything. Life is an illusion or whatever. Plato's The Cave, all this stuff. Like, everything I know is filtered through my perception, so I can't really know anything. And most people just don't think about thinking enough to grapple with that. And that's not a bad thing, because that's how it is. But that's a lot of what this is that like, we think that because everything I experience consciously is filtered through my processes, what that means is like your conscious experience, you create that. Not you consciously create it, but things about you create your conscious experience.
Yeah.
Because that's all we know, people then mistake that for being the same as reality. And it becomes this thing of like, I am in control of reality.
Right.
When you're not even really in control of your own conscious experience, even though you are the only thing. Things internal to you are the things that make it be what it is.
Oh.
We can shift it, not in the moment, and that's different from reality.
Brandon, I have to go.
Yeah.
I know. Normally I will not have a client at this hour, but
it's good for us to wrap up on time.
Punctual.
Yeah.
Just so nice being with you all.
Good to be with you. Good to be with you all. We will be back next Monday, same bad time, same bad channel.
Why are you staying on?
No.
Okay.
It's a 1 hour thing.